Instead of people having to vote reform with their nose held, which in my case is quite a big job, they can vote for something that they actually believe in. You know, ultimately, democracy and politics was about voting for something that you thought would make not your life better, but your children or your grandchildren's lives better. And that's where Rupert Lowe comes in.
That doesn't mean anything. What isn't 9%? 9%. You're not going to be decisive in any constituencies, are you? All you're going to do is take votes off reform so that Labour get another 5 years, at which point, Charlie, we're in the toilet.
Mass deportations, talk about the grooming gangs, talk about banning halal slaughter. This is clickbait politics. This isn't what can really happen.
So now we have a choice. And to me, it is a stark one. You've got a woke, wet, watered-down version of conservatism promoted by Nigel Farage and Reform UK, a party now infiltrated by failed Tories and Muslims. Or a full-fat, Donald Trump-style revolution to save the disunited kingdom, which won't be easy, goddammit, but also won't involve us capitulating to Islam and socialists and the elite Westminster and media class that got us into this fucking mess in the first place. So I know what I'm choosing. I know who I'm choosing. But the Reform propagandists and Farage loyalists don't even want us to have this debate as a nation. Shut it down, they scream. Well, I ask, what are you afraid of? Who are you afraid of? What happened on Friday night was our equivalent of the Donald rolling down that escalator at Trump Tower when everyone other than the actual voters thought it was a joke because they were convinced Jeb Bush, remember him, was going to romp home and secure the Republican nomination. But our Trump is a certain Rupert Lowe. And his Trump Tower is his 550-acre farm located in Gloucestershire as he dedicated his life to the mission of restoring Britain through a new political party.
On a farm, you don't think in election cycles or headlines or polling. You think in seasons. You think in generations, in what you leave behind to those who come after you. And that's why, here on the farm, I am now launching Restore Britain as a national political party. I'm now going to dedicate my life to finding, organising, funding and providing hundreds of qualified candidates to present to the British people at the next general election. This process has already started, with invitations being issued to patriots in aligned political parties, Reform, the Conservatives, the SDP, Advance and more.
And in a key differentiating factor from Reform, Rupert pledged that he will only be hiring outsiders.
Every single one will be from well outside the scale of what now has to be done.
And I want to compare and contrast what we're hearing from Rupert and Restore Britain with what we now have from Reform UK. Where Superwoman Suella Braverman, a woman who I've always loved, is now seemingly supporting socialist policies. Watch.
These are quite, I would say, socialist policies too. I mean, are you happy with that?
I am actually. So I think there's actually a case for, you know, if we are serious about reindustrialising our country and a renaissance of our industry, then I do think there is a need for
state involvement.
State involvement. And our industries, our heavy industries, have been abandoned and unable to compete against, a more powerful and ascendant East. And so I do think there is a very strong case for that, which I support. The benefit will be more jobs. The benefit will be more growth for our economy. And I do think that, you know, radical thinking needs to be, put in place. And I support that policy.
But radical thinking is not socialism, Suella, and you know that. You know that. But this is something that is happening in a whole load of policy areas. According to Rupert's restoration plan, mass immigration, for example, won't just be stopped, but reversed with an unrelenting approach comparable to Trump in the US with ICE.
The first priority is to control who national is unable to speak English, lives in social housing, claims benefits, refuses to work, fails to integrate, commits crime, or even actively hates our way of life and wishes to do us harm. Then they must leave or be made to leave. Restore Britain will make our communities safe again for women and children. That I promise you. If that means millions go, then millions go.
Millions go. Millions go. Contrast that with Nigel Farage's honestly held views on mass deportations.
And by saying that you don't support mass deportations...
If I say I support mass deportations, that's all anybody will talk about for the next 20 years. So it's pointless even going there.
So it's a rhetorical problem.
It's a political impossibility to deport hundreds of thousands of people. We simply can't do it.
Okay, what about the matter of Islam? Well, I would say Rupert is unequivocal too, with a policy approach that includes banning burqas, Sharia law, and cousin marriages.
That will mean defending our culture. That will mean resisting the relentless creep of radical Islam. That will mean banning the burqa, outlawing Sharia law, blocking cousin marriages, and reimposing our Christian-based rule of law. A Restore Britain government would legislate to ensure that no halal or kosher slaughter on British soil. This is Britain, and we will do things our way.
Again, let's compare that with the Reform UK approach to demography.
We have a Muslim population in Britain growing by about 75% every 10 years. Right? That's just where we are.
Mm-hmm.
If we politically alienate the whole of Islam, we will lose. We'll lose.
So how does one include
We
them?
will lose.
And he predicts that by 2063, Britain will be minority white British. Is that a concern of yours at all?
Yeah, I don't think that's I haven't seen those predictions, and 2063 is a long way off. But
It's a few decades.
yeah, it's a few decades. Well, it's I'm trying to do the maths quickly in my head, but it's in most people. I'll be long gone. Put it like that.
Are you getting the difference yet? And it's a choice, as I say, it is a choice. Then I want to show you Rupert's closing pitch.
This political party now exists for one reason: to restore Britain, to make it a better, safer, and more prosperous place for British men and women to raise their families. It will be difficult and it will be painful, but I assure you, it is possible. I hope you will consider joining me on this journey and becoming a member of our party. It is our country. It is now our collective responsibility to act. Together, we will restore Britain.
Okay, so that is a man who I would argue wants to be Prime Minister more than anything. I think that's important, right? He doesn't want to do it to enrich himself, but rather to save the country. Now, lots of folk are saying that's not where Nigel is at all. Watch this.
I'm fascinated by your idea that Nigel Farage doesn't want to be Prime Minister.
I don't think he will be.
So what's he... No, but you said he doesn't want to be.
Yeah, I believe he doesn't want to be.
Well what's he doing then? What's the idea of all this?
He's doing what he says he will do. He's reforming Britain. Britain needs reform, but I don't think it needs reform by reform.
Okay. All right. I just don't understand what you think Nigel Farage is up to if he doesn't want to be Prime Minister, or if he doesn't want Reform UK to succeed. He's just doing it for fun, or what?
I don't know. You need to ask him that. It's
well,
just
no,
my
hang on.
view.
No, he would say, I want to be Prime Minister, wouldn't he?
Well, I've not heard him say that. I'm saying... I've heard him say,
you've never heard him say he wants to be Prime Minister?
No, I've heard him say when Reform have won the general election.
He's always saying he wants to be Prime Minister.
Okay.
He says it about 50 times a week.
But of course, what's happening now is that the reformists want to shut down all debate. And that's not where I'm at. I really hate this idea that you've either got to be all in with Reform UK or you're the enemy. Because I was really clear. I voted for Reform UK at the last election. Nigel Farage was my colleague and I thought my friend. I was the first to predict that he was going to become Prime Minister. But I think these reformers forget that it's actually Nigel who unfortunately made so many of us politically homeless, waging war of those of us on the right who very openly supported his party but were not prepared to, for example, turn on Tommy Robinson or condemn Rupert when Zia Yusuf tried to get him locked up for hurty words. We're also not prepared to look away when a child jab pusher like Nadeem Zahawi is parachuted into a senior position within the party. But absolutely critical to the reform propaganda is GB News and Talk TV, my two former employers who now sadly exist as sort of reform propaganda channels pushing this sort of nonsense. We are on a mission to 700,000 subscribers, so I need you to do something for me right now. It is free, it is easy, it is simple. Just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's because over 50% of you watching this video haven't done that yet, and it is the best way to support Outspoken. We're totally independent, by the way, no big tech backing, no billionaires pulling the strings, and if you turn on the bell, you'll get alerted to all our new videos.
And I'm not so stupid to think that clickbait statements on Twitter, mass deportations, talk about the grooming gangs, talk about banning halal slaughter. This is clickbait politics. This isn't what can really happen. I want a politician that understands what he's going to face when he gets into number 10, which is a very, very hostile civil service that will do their level best, as they have done with the Tories, to undo any sensibilities that they try and put forward. And to talk about a right-wing coalition now, it's too early in the day. Let's see what happens in the next 18 months, because this country is heading down the pan far faster than even I imagined.
Okay, so if we believe in mass deportation, something that the Trump administration has actually done in the US, it's now just clickbait. Okay. Then there's Mark Dolan. Do you remember Mark Dolan, who supported Fishy Rishi Sunak to be Prime Minister? I was actually at GB News at the time. He does what his bosses tell him to do. At that point, it was like, we need someone to support Fishy Rishi. So he said, I'll do it. Now he's following his paymaster's orders to support Farage at Talk TV.
Before we launched, we ran some private polling was done, which suggested that a party led by Rupert Lowe would poll at about 9-10%, and that was before we launched. So we're going to see how that increases.
That doesn't mean anything. What isn't 9%? 9%. You're not going to be decisive in any constituencies, are you? All you're going to do is take votes off reform so that Labour get another 5 years, at which point, Charlie, we're in the toilet. Thank you very much.
As I said, Mark, the Conservatives and
this isn't a game, Charlie.
They're both in a mode of consolidation.
This is not The Traitors. It's not a TV show. This is people's lives. They want change. And all you're doing is taking votes off Farage, who ain't perfect, but at least he's a Conservative.
Come on, Mark, let me speak here. So the Conservatives and Reform are both in a mode of consolidation, right? The Conservatives have fairly openly said that they're looking to win about 60 seats at the next general election in the south of England among essentially Lib Dem/Conservative voters who like the Tories' tax policies, for example. Reform equally think that they have the east of England, the north of England, essentially the white working class and beyond, that vote bound up. And so they're increasingly drifting towards the centre. And so neither of these parties, which should be the vehicles for the rescuing of this country and serving the interests of the British people.
It took Katie Hopkins, someone cancelled everywhere like me and owned by no one like me, to speak some real sense.
Shouting, Restore will split the vote. That is incorrect, because Restore is a long-term proposition, 27, 28, 29. And by then, many things will happen, including mergers of the biggest parties on the right. But for now, instead of people having to vote reform with their nose held, which in my case is quite a big job, they can vote for something that they actually believe in. You know, ultimately, democracy and politics was about voting for something that you thought would make not your life better, but your children or your grandchildren's lives better. And that's where Rupert Lowe comes in. So I so applaud Rupert Lowe for having the personal resilience after what he's been put through by Lee and Zia and the rest to stand up and create this party. I so applaud Ben Habib for parking his ego and handing over almost the mechanics of the political party that he's built up in order that they can create something that can move at speed and deliver as a political party when the time comes. And I'm so thrilled that this will be a party not of recycled, failed politicians that got us into this mess, but of successful business leaders, of farmers, of ordinary people who want to work hard and do the best for this country. And so I say to you, do not worry about splitting the vote, because in truth, Nigel never wanted to be Prime Minister anyway. Think about the fact that this is an alternative political party that you don't have to vote with what your nose held. Many of us would never vote for Nadeem Zahawi because he's a monster. He forced vaccines into children. Many of us could never honestly give a vote to Zia or Lee because we know how they treated Rupert. This is a political party you can vote with your heart. And that's what matters. It's a party you can actually believe in. And I leave you with this. When a man stands at his own farm gate and tells you quietly what he's going to do, then believe me, he will do that. And he'll probably even do it on a John Deere. Well done to Rupert, well done to Ben, and well done to all the brilliant people who know that they finally found something they can believe in with Restore.
And I so agree, because I'm absolutely sick of being told, oh, you have to vote for this party who is now capitulating to Islam, capitulating to socialists, and you've got to do it because we have no choice. We need the choice. And Reform is clearly freaking out about this because they know that they've let us all down on the so-called right. And they've done it because they thought that we were not going to have another choice, and now we do. So the irony is that Rupert's biggest enemy, Zia Youssef, the bloke who effectively bought himself in to Reform UK with a £200,000 donation and then reported Rupert Lowe to the police, wanted him to go to jail for some type of political row, has now opened the door on GB News, no less, to a Restore Reform UK deal.
Are you worried about Rupert Lowe setting up this rival group, Restore UK? It's just happened. Quite a lot of the audience may be following what Mr Lowe is doing now. He's out of Reform.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, it's a democracy. People are entitled to start parties, and we'll see what level of support will be achieved. I mean, look, the first past the post system, someone was chairman of this party for a considerable period of time. It is really, really difficult, and I think people underestimate how hard it is. I mean, Nigel himself, if you remember, tried a number of times to just become an MP, let alone get us into this position. Look, all we'll do is continue to make our argument.
It's worrying for the right to be this divided. You've got Rupert Lowe doing his thing, Reform doing your thing, the Conservatives doing their thing. We talked earlier about the prospect of some kind of lib green coalition. If that beat Reform on its own, you'd have to start doing deals with the right, wouldn't you?
Well, that's a big if, right? And in that hypothetical scenario, you'd have to do it the patriotic thing. But ultimately, Reform
so you
is...
would have
Reform,
to do the patriotic.
Well, no, but hold on. Reform is led north of 200 opinion polls in a row. The average of our lead in the polls consistently is 9 to 10 points. We are on course for a general election.
If the alternative was the coalition that I've just described, you just said something about patriotic duty. Are you saying that if it came to it, that the right would have to unite to see off a progressive alliance?
Well, I think as soon as you're in the territory of that conversation, look, frankly, this is why I came into politics, I'd be extremely concerned about the way the country is going to end up, because there's nothing, frankly, right about the Tory party in terms of how they've governed.
Well, that is true. But I would argue now that, frankly, there is nothing right about Reform UK either. That's not to say, by the way, that I think everything is going to be straightforward from here on in. And I'm an independent reporter. I don't support any particular party. And so I am concerned about what is going on in all of this with Advance UK, which is led by the magnanimous Ben Habib, whose initial reaction to the announcement from Rupert, quite rightly, won massive respect.
I'm utterly delighted that Rupert Lowe has decided to convert Restore Britain to a political party. It is a new political force that can deliver change at the ballot box that this country so desperately needs. And that is why I set up Advance UK last year. Indeed, when I set it up with Rupert Lowe contemplated as leader. So I am over the moon that he has come round to sharing my view that a new political force, one that can deliver change at the ballot box, is what is required. And with that in mind, I'm going to be calling a meeting of the College of Advance UK, the body of people who are charged with the guidance of our party, the heart, soul, conscience, intellectual ballast, if you like, of Advance UK. I'm going to be calling a meeting of that body of people in the next few weeks to determine the terms on which Advance will merge with Restore Britain. And when it comes to the terms of the merger between Advance UK and Restore Britain, I want to make one thing clear. It matters not what my position is post any such merger. I didn't get into politics in order to politically advance myself. I got into politics to save this country, to do it in a serious, principled way, a way that will sustain this country into the years, centuries ahead as a secure country, never again being threatened by the forces with which it's currently being threatened. So it's not about me. Frankly, it's not even about Rupert Lowe. It's about getting the right force in politics together, and that's what we will do.
And I do love the fact that Ben Habib never puts his ego first. But then last night, Andrew Bridgen posted, it appears that Ben Habib has been misleading his members and the public regarding the prospects of any merger between his party Advance UK and Restore Britain. So obviously the first thing I did this morning once I'd seen that is ask Ben Habib what was going on and what was the truth about those rumours. He messaged me this statement, which he's more than happy for me to share with Outspoken viewers. And he says, an open offer has been made to Restore, to which we have not had any response. The ball is firmly in Restore's court. Once we have a response, I will call a meeting of the college to discuss the position. Right now, all focus must be on winning Gorton and Denton. Of course, Nick Buckley is standing there for Advance UK versus Matt Goodwin for Reform UK. And Ben Habib said, it is business as usual. Advance is a first-class party, the best structured in the country, perhaps the best structured party ever. We stand for our mission statement, which must not be compromised. So I would argue it's not looking like a done deal yet, is it? Which does obviously risk some type of fracture on the right. But there is so much more to celebrate, though. I mean, The Guardian, look at their coverage of this. They're definitely worried. The UK far right lines up behind Rupert Lowe in challenge to reform. Good Lord, they are worried. What? The UK far right? Like Duncan Bannatyne. Duncan Bannatyne, the BBC Dragon's Den dude. Really good guy. Who's right behind this. So is The Guardian going to call him far right now? And Restore Britain, look, they're making it clear this is not some type of spoiler party. They are in it to win it. We are not in this to win a few seats or act as a pressure group. We are doing this to win the next general election. There are 3 years. Let's get to work. And the bookies have immediately taken note. And what you've got to realize about the bookies is very often they move before the polls. With Basil the Great revealing that Rupert Lowe odds on becoming Prime Minister have dropped massively. He's now 16-1 at William Hill, placing him second behind Farage among opposition leaders. He's ahead of both Kemi Badenoch and Zach Polanski. Not bad for day 3. And there are some huge endorsements as well. Rupert has received the backing of Elon Musk, who said he was the only one who would actually do it. Sensibly, he also suggested, though, that the party combine efforts with Advance. Then there's Tommy Robinson, who said, when asked who he thought should be the next British Prime Minister, wrote, Rupert Lowe is the only man in this fight. Farage wants us to prepare for the Islamic takeover. And in a sign of Rupert's star power, even international stars like Glenn Beck, the independent news sensation, and Brian Kilmeade of Fox News are noticing. Look, there he's just watched the video and said, love this guy. Indeed, Rupert's video has surged in terms of viewership, even compared to Nigel Farage's launch video as Reform UK leader. And a Find Out Now poll already has the party registering at 10%. So behold the start of a British political revolution, as Rupert Lowe launches Restore Britain as a national political party, and within 48 hours amasses 50,000 members.
Good evening, everybody. Forgive my slightly scruffy farm attire, but I've got some excellent news for all those who are following what we're doing at Restore Britain. We've just gone through 50,000 members, which is absolutely fantastic. It shows that people are following what we're doing and they are supportive of what we're doing, which I just can't thank them enough for. What I would say is that it's now, you can't rely on a small group of people to carry the burden of what needs to be done. So I appeal to all of you, join us in as many numbers as you can, but spread the word, start to challenge when you think things are wrong. Don't accept everything. Do it legally, do it fairly, do it in a British way. But please, let's spread the word. Let's collectively take on this malaise that has infected Britain. We need to get rid of it. So have a good evening, good luck next week, and thank you for watching.
Now, let me bring in today's superstar panel. But first, a lot of people watching or listening to this will know exactly what I mean. Trying to quit vaping or smoking isn't just about nicotine, it's about the routine. The hand-to-mouth motion, that oral fixation, that little pause you've trained into your day. I've seen this up close recently, actually, because my fiance has been working to quit vaping, and the hardest part hasn't been willpower. It's those automatic moments where your hands reach for something without you even thinking. That's why Fume is so smart. It's a flavored air device designed to help people quit vaping and smoking by breaking that hand-to-mouth pattern. No nicotine, no batteries, no vapor, just a weighted, twisty, fidget-friendly tool you use when the urge hits. You can interrupt that old loop and reach for something better. And it's not even always a big urge. Sometimes it's just a fidget moment, on a call, stress, heading out the door. Fume gives you that pause without going back to nicotine. Flavors are lighter, like flavored water compared to a soda. Crisp mint is the strongest, especially if you're coming off heavier use, and raspberry is tangy and a bit sweeter. Fume has already helped over 700,000 people take steps towards better habits. When you grab a journey pack, you'll also get a free gift just for using my code, which is Outspoken. So remember that, Outspoken. Head to tryfume.com. That's try, TRYFUM.com. And remember to use the code Outspoken to claim your free gift today. But now, back to the show. Bernie Spofford of If This Is True, Lee Mitchell of LBL, and Howard Cox with me. Howard, you are many things, of course, but in terms of this discussion, you are a member of the Advance UK College, and you have posted earlier today on this saying, over the weekend, I've had dozens of private messages calling on the right to come together. But many of these self-declared political experts are in fact doing exactly the reverse and encouraging division. My position is clear and has never wavered in 30 years. I look at policies, not sound bites. Political parties I have supported have moved away from me and the majority's needs and desires. Advance UK and Restore Britain must come together for the sake of decent, honest, hard-working people. That is my wish, and I hope the adults in the room recognise that before it's too late. The political philosophies of both parties are separated by a mere microcosm, a message of difference. It doesn't have to be a marriage of convenience, but instead it should be a conjoined partnership respecting both political ethoses. So what's going on, Howard? Because in that first message, Ben seemed to make out as if this was just inevitability. There's going to be a merger. He actually spoke about when, not if. But now in this exclusive note to us today here on Outspoken, he's saying we have not heard anything back from Restore Britain. Our philosophies have to be followed. So what's the truth here? What's really going on behind the scenes?
Well, I'm privy to some of the things behind the scenes, but what Ben has said is what is actually, is being talked about within Advance UK's hierarchy, and that is simple as this: the offer's been made to Restore Britain, to Rupert, to come back to us and say, what do you want from us? And we've had no response. Now, there are 40,000 members, which, bear in mind, if Rupert had taken up the invitation to be leader of Advance UK back in June of last year, when it was launched, we wouldn't be sitting in the situation. We'd have a party probably of 100,000 members. And that is what I find a bit sad. I'm a massive fan of Rupert, as you probably appreciate. Rupert was there when I stood for London Mayor. He was the only one that came when I stood for Reform to support me on the day on the ballot box day, when I put my tick in my own ballot box.
Yes.
He was the only one there. I didn't have anyone else there. I've got a huge amount of respect for Rupert. And in fact, I'm going to the court tomorrow, the Royal Justice Court tomorrow in the Strand. He's got a court case on, and I've been invited to go along and witness what's going on there. So I'm not being ostracised by Rupert, but I don't understand why he hasn't come back to bed, even privately, to say where we stand. We can't just, all the hard work and the £100,000 that Ben's put into this campaign. And bear in mind, you heard Rupert speak by those lovely gates in his Gloucestershire farm. He virtually actually mouthed the same stuff that Ben mentioned at the Emmanuel Centre last week on the Saturday. I think you were there, Ben.
Yes, I was. And it was inspiring. And that is the thing. I want Advance UK to be a part of this personally. I do, because I think Advance UK is brilliant. And I think it's full of brilliant people. But I guess, Bernie Spofforth, what's really interesting to me is that there has been a change since Rupert announced this. There's something about Rupert as a leader. He's our Donald Trump. I really do believe that. But also, there are just the practicalities, right? Like, he has a seat in Parliament. That makes a difference. It means the mainstream media can't completely ignore this in the way that they have ignored Advance UK.
Oh, but they will do. They'll try and ignore it as much as possible and smear it as much as possible, because that's the armour, right? For me, I like Ben very much, and I like Rupert very much, probably mainly because they're my type of people. They're business people. They've been in business for a long time. I think the key point of what Rupert said that everybody needs to remember is forget all the other bollocks and the noise. He said, it will hurt. It will hurt. And the problem that Rupert's got, and the problem that Ben's got, that Reform, by the way, have figured out, is that people will not vote to hurt themselves. 60% of this country takes benefits and welfare from the government or are employed by the government. Within the next 5 to 10 years, 60% of white-collar workers will be unemployed. We don't have the tax revenue to support everybody. We are in a terrible, terrible situation. And I know that migration and illegal migration and welfare drain is the big newspaper headline. I get that. I hear it. I agree with it. But behind the scenes, we are in the worst financial predicament you could ever believe. Britain is owned by the banks.
Totally. But
green
Bernie,
guilt.
that's why, though, I loved this message, because Rupert Lowe said this is going to hurt, it's going to be hard. And compare that to what we're seeing with Reform UK. And Suella Braverman actually sitting there, I'm shocked. I mean, I know Suella Braverman, she's not a socialist, but she's having to embrace socialist policies, and I'm not up for that.
Yes, she is. And it's complete bullshit, because she knows as Reform have just figured that trying to get Britain out of the mess it's in, and don't forget, it's taken 60 years to get here, and over the last 15, it's been absolutely embedded through every part of the civil service and in every institution. It will take more than one political cycle to get out. And if, let's say Rupert gets in, right? Let's say he wins a general election. In the end of 5 years, when the new general election comes along, he'll be voted out. And they all know that, because what takes 50 years or 60 years to get into can't take 4 years to undo. And that's the problem. And it's the problem I've got with all the parties. They're lying, because if they tell the truth, they won't be elected.
Indeed. Now, Lee Mitchell, great to have you on Outspoken for the first time. I believe, and I hope this is the case actually, because you know I love to have a fair and balanced debate. You're more in the June Slater camp, aren't you? And I noted that Based and Bougie, one of your co-hosts, good friend of mine, she wasn't happy with this announcement over the weekend, Lee. She posted, "Congratulations to Rupert Lowe for further dividing the vote and giving the Uni Party a clean win. Actually giving the British public a chance at seeing a patriotic party in Parliament. Woohoo, what a smart move." So she was annoyed by this, Lee. Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much what the other two have just said. I mean, I've known Howard for a number of years now. He knows me. And I agree with what he's saying. I agree with what Bert, and I kind of agreed with what June said and not agreed with what June said. It wasn't a complete agreement. The fact of the matter is that when, I don't know if many people don't know this, but I only found out recently that we haven't had a Prime Minister serve a full term in this country since Tony Blair. That's 25 odd years. And in that time, what we've seen is a complete and utter basket case of a country where we've gone from one direction to another direction. People will say, "Oh yeah, but it's 14 years of the Tories." But the thing is, we had half a dozen different PMs at the Tory parties, all singing different hymn sheets. So, like what Bernie has just said, this is not going to be a problem that's going to be solved just by one election over 4 or 5 years. This is going to take decades to solve every single problem. What I agreed with what June said is that the problem we've got here, and as you know, Dan, is the civil service. Whoever gets into power, it doesn't matter whether it's Rupert, whether it's Ben, whether it's Nigel, whoever gets into power are going to have an enormous fight on their hands with the civil service, because the civil service will just not like what they're going to see.
Totally. But that's why I think there's this difference, though, because I would argue that Rupert is saying, "We're going to war with you." That is a Trump-like approach. Personally, I think that's what we need. Nigel is thinking, "Oh, we're going to be able to bring these people around to our side." You're not. But there are other people who are annoyed about this too, actually, on the right. People I really like. And it upsets me, actually, that they don't think it's okay to have a debate. I mean, I'll give you the example. Andrew Lawrence, the comedian. I think he's brilliant. So funny. But he posted on this, "Lowe has most likely condemned us all to another term of Labour government. Those are not the actions of a man who cares about this country." And then he said, "On reflection, not bothered about Restore Britain. Supporters all seem a mixture of furious, unhinged and autistic. Fringe outfit at best, as you were." And that's what I hate with Reform UK supporters. It's like, I'm not going at you personally like that. I just think we have a difference in policy perspective. Anyway, Katie Hopkins fired back at him politely and said, "Andrew, your comment applies to tactical voting based on the current offering in the short term. In the mid to longer term, decent British people finally have a party they can place faith in. Holding your nose and voting tactically will never beat voting with both head and heart." And Howard, I have to say, I totally agree with that. I do. But what I found really disappointing, because I love Andrew Lawrence and I'm going to keep loving Andrew Lawrence, just like I'm going to keep loving June Slater and Adam Brooks and all of these people. But why are you attacking us? Because we're not welcome in Reform UK. So what did you expect? That we were just going to sit outside and watch our country be destroyed and watch this party go down a woke and wet path? I mean, I saw Carl Benjamin, the brilliant Carl Benjamin of Lotus Eaters, saying at the weekend to Alex Phillips, "What did you think we were going to do? Like, we're fighting for our country. You can't just tell us to shut up for the next 3 years.
Well, look, something like 48% people didn't vote in the last election for a start. And in that situation, and they're politically homeless. And what Liam Bernadette has said is very, very right. We're in a situation we've got to take on the blob, but we've also got to take on the lefty lawyers. You know, we're all talking about what's happening in Europe, you know, and we're hearing Starmer getting closer to Europe again. All the lies are being thrown. And I just take a little bit of exception to what Bertie said, that parties tell lies. One of the reasons why I'm with Advance UK and Ben is simply because I've never met a more honest politician, and the way he operates is phenomenal. Fortunately, as you probably both know, I stood for reform, for London Mayor, and I also came second in a general election last year down in Dover. But I was, absolutely ostracised simply because of my right for free speech in supporting Tommy Robinson, and I had to resign because otherwise I would be actually excluded, suspended from the party, thrown out of the party, simply for a thing that I agree with, because I am a supporter of Tommy Robinson. And why can't we do this? Now, that man, Tommy, supports Advance UK. He also supports Rupert that was a Freudian slip. Rupert Lowe. And from my point of view, we need to be a conjoined party with two leaders at the moment. I believe that, what will happen is Ben would happily be a deputy leader, and Rupert Lowe would head the whole thing together. But I also see people like Connor Tomlinson saying, there's no democracy in this thing, but we've got to have that. It's a hard policies we've got to have. It's going to hurt, yes, but we've got to have a democracy within the party. And that's what I'm seeing so far with Restore Britain.
Yeah, that is a concern. You've got to have a laugh sometimes, right? You've got to have a laugh. It was actually June Slater, believe it or not, who pointed this out to me on a WhatsApp group I'm in. And this is funny. This is from David Curtin, who leads the Heritage Party. And he summed up the situation with Reform, Restore and Advance. Nigel hates Ben. Ben hates Nigel. Nigel hates Rupert. Rupert hates Nigel. Ben loves Rupert. Rupert's fans would deport Ben. I just thought that is very funny, Lee. You've got to laugh at this sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I found fascinating over the last couple of days, but also very concerning, was the amount of ethno-nationalists that have made Rupert Lowe their new pin-up and the second coming of Adolf. You showed Based and Bougie's tweet of just a couple of minutes ago, and these people that are coming out and supporting Rupert Lowe have constantly attacked Based and Bougie on a regular basis. I've seen the messages that she gets sent. They've said they're going to break into her house and they're going to hang her. They call her a chimp. They call her a fat retarded monkey. So I'm kind of concerned with the support that Rupert Lowe is getting from a certain segment of our country. That's what concerns me most of all. And until he addresses that, then I'm going to find it very difficult to get behind.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this is something that Reform are pushing, Bernie. We've seen it from Matt Goodwin over the weekend, this idea that Restore Britain supporters are racist. I come at this from a different point of view, because what I love about Advance UK is they said, look, anyone can be part of our party. We're not going to sort of do that offence archaeology and try and judge, oh, this person's views are unpalatable, so we're going to kick them out. But do you think this is going to be an effective attack line, Bernie, trying to say, oh, Restore Britain supporters are racist? Because I do think we're going to see a lot of that.
Well, it's worked before. It's what the media do all the time, isn't it? They just call anybody who doesn't agree with the narrative a racist. So it's no surprise to me whatsoever that that's the tactics used, if they are being used. And can I just say that Based and Bougie is a babe. I really love her. She's great.
She's amazing.
And no one should have to put up with that abuse. But abuse seems to be the new way of deciding who's in your club. And I just think, all of these parties talk about Christian values and none of them show any of them. So if you're really going to talk about being a Christian, you should remember that it was Jesus that said, love your enemy. love the people you disagree with. So it's all bullshit, isn't it? Because it isn't about Christianity. It isn't about anything other than power. And the media and other parties will use every tactic they possibly can. Meanwhile, we'll fall to pieces because we are literally falling apart. It's insane to me. In a democracy, you should vote for the party whose policies you most align with, you understand, and you believe they can deliver. So if you think that's reform, vote for them. If you think it's advance, vote for them. Reform, Tories, Labour, even the tit whisperer, right? If they've got the policies you most align with, then vote for them. All of the other stuff is fluff. That's what I honestly believe.
Dan Wootton Outspoken is your no-spin, no-bias, no-censorship outlet for independent news. We have no big tech backing or billionaires pulling my strings, but that does mean I need your support. So please hit subscribe on YouTube, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe to Dan Wootton Outspoken on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's totally free, but allows me to continue my promise to always keep fighting for you.